Greetings. We're so glad you're all here for this occasion. Are you comfortable? Warm enough? Good. Our guest tonight is Mark Gunnells, author of Against the Clock. Remember clocks? Back before eternity set in? And now, here's your infernal host, Damascus Mincemeyer. So let's get on with the damn show!
Oh my god. I love that. I've never seen that before. Hello everybody. Welcome to the Critical Blast Show and the Damn Show. I am the infernal host, Damascus Mincemeyer, and this is Mark Gunnells. He's our guest tonight, and our regular host, RJ Carter, he's tied up in my dungeon. But Mark, he has a new novella out in the Dark Tide Volume 8, Against the Clock, from Crystal Lake Publishing. And I would like to thank you for coming on our show again. And together we're going to talk about the next hour, discussing suspense and horror in high school and 80s teen movie trivia. And take it away and tell us about your new novella.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on the show again. I always enjoy coming on and chatting with you.
Always fun.
And you make it very easy. It just feels like we're hanging out and having a chat.
Right.
But my new novella, it's called Septic. It's a suspense story about it's set in 1988, which, to me seems like was just yesterday, but was really, over 3 decades ago. But about a high school student who gets trapped in a school bathroom over the Christmas break, and his appendix has burst. So there's like this ticking time clock of, will he be able to get out in time to get help? Will someone figure out where he is? So it's I was approached by Crystal Lake. They were doing this Dark Tide series, and they asked if I wanted to be in the one that they were going to do for mystery and suspense stories. And I already had this idea in my head, and I thought, this is the perfect motivation I need to get it out of my head and write it down. And I had a blast writing it. So I'm really excited for it to get unleashed on the world now.
Right. It was a fun story. I mean, it was very tense and very suspenseful, but it was also fun. I like you did a very good job with the 80s feel of it. And you're right, the 80s, I don't know what it is about 1980s culture that has been so pervasive, but it does just feel like it was just yesterday. I mean, the culture was so dominant and so it's lasted for a very long time. I mean, it's had a very long afterlife.
I mean, 80s nostalgia is definitely its own beast. And being a child of the 80s, I can definitely understand it. And this novella is actually loosely based on an incident that really happened to someone when I was in high school. A cheerleader really did get stuck in a bathroom at Christmas break when they had gathered at the school to go be in the Christmas parade. Her situation was not as dramatic. She did not have appendicitis. She managed to get out in a couple of hours. But I thought it would be good to keep it set in that time period. One, because that's when it happened, and two, before technology became so pervasive, it was easier for somebody to be trapped somewhere. But it posed its own problems just because technology is so pervasive now that it kind of gets in our heads. And after I had written it, when I was going back to do my second pass, I know there was at least one point where I realized somebody mentioned GPS, so I had to get rid of that. And I think I had somebody mention Google. And it's just so, even though, I was trying so hard to make it 80s, that's so in our heads now that it just kind of slipped out. So I really had to guard against that to keep it authentic to the time period.
I've encountered that. I've encountered that before, in some of my own writing. I wrote a story once called "100 Years Never Drop," and it was set in 1986. And I remember it felt so weird having the protagonist use a payphone. Like, I wasn't used to. I mean, I was used to that growing up, but I wasn't used to it in any of my stories because it's just easy to have them pull out the cell phone and call somebody. And I was all like, man, this is weird. I had to like have the guy go to like, the corner store, find the payphone, put the money in, use it, and I was like, it was just odd. But
it's how we lived back then.
Yeah, I liked the character Carl. I liked he was a very positive can-do guy. Like he kept trying to think his way out of the situation instead of just like succumb to. He wasn't very like a woe betide me sort of fellow. He was like can do and try to get out of here. I liked the part where he tried to use the toilet lid to break the door down. That was pretty good. I enjoyed that.
Thank you. I had I definitely didn't want him to be a character who would just give up without fight. And so I sat down and I tried to think of, if you were in this situation, what are the different things you could try? And so I wanted him to try everything he possibly could. And I wanted that reader reaction too, to be rooting for him and with each new thing he tried to get the reader kind of excited that maybe this one will be the one that works. And that would actually help ratchet up the suspense a little bit.
Right. And you also have like subplots going on at the same time. You've got his friend Danny and Zach, the potential love interest, and his mom. You've got Carl's mom also, who has been called into work unbeknownst to him. And her boss is kind of a dick and won't let her go. But they've got the subplots because they all notice that eventually that he's kind of missing. So it becomes like a question of, are they going to get him in time or not? Because the burst appendix really has like a deadly timing device to it. That was very commendable. Like that.
And I enjoy opening the story up beyond just him trapped in that bathroom, because I did think that could help with the suspense, because you had all these potential people who could possibly come to his aid if they could figure it out in time. And it was nice to kind of switch between them all. And that was kind of, when I first started writing it, I was calling the story Convergence, because it was like a convergence of things going wrong that led to him being there. So that was kind of built into my original idea. And then for a while, I was calling the story Busted, because I'm like, my reasoning was the lock of the bathroom door is busted and his appendix is busted. But I wasn't.
Right.
It was actually my husband, Craig, who ended up coming up with the name of the novella Septic. He suggested that, cool. And I really liked it.
I like that. Yeah. So how would you define the difference between suspense and horror? Because they are kind of related. What would you define the difference between those two?
I think the best horror does contain suspense. Because to me, the suspense can actually lead to me, in a horror story, the real horror isn't the blood and mayhem. It's the build up to it. That's when you're kind of feeling that.
Right.
If I was going to differentiate, like, just suspense, to me, it's just about that. It's just about that adrenaline feeling of not action, because I don't think a suspense story even has to necessarily be action packed. But there's just this sense of what's going to happen next. How is a character going to get out of this? And again, I think really good horror has that in there, but suspense sort of, for me, doesn't always have the bloody payoff or the big, battle of good and it's kind of a more self-contained, streamlined thing, and horror can be built around it, or it can just stand on its own. I'm not sure if that makes any sense.
It does make a lot of sense. Yes, I tend to think like the original Halloween. I think is it's horror technically, but I would define that more as a suspenseful movie because there's not a lot of bloodshed in it, and there's a lot of tension and a lot of, like, as you were saying, like the anticipation of what's going to happen.
I would agree with that. Because Halloween, to me, what makes that movie is the suspense. And I think that's why I won't say a lot, but that's why I think some modern horror fans don't like the original Halloween as much, because horror has become much bloodier and more extreme. And not that I'm saying there's anything wrong with that, but I think some audiences today can't see something that's primarily suspense and feel satisfied. Where for me, the suspense is really what makes it.
Yeah, I like a lot of suspense in my horror. One movie that I always point to is the first Hostel movie. People always label that as like torture porn and very, very gory and violent. It does have those elements, but I like the suspense of, will Paxton escape from the compound? Can he get away? Because that's a really, I like that. I remember the first time I watched that, I was like on the edge of my seat. Can he actually escape from this? And I think a lot of audiences don't understand the nature of suspense and needs to be into a story.
Yeah, and I think there are still a lot of us who do love that aspect of it, and but the thing that I love so much about the suspense genre, thrillers, horror, is that there's something for everybody.
True.
If you want something more extreme, there's stuff for you. For those of us who like something a little more suspenseful and with more of a build-up, there's that for us. So, and I don't know, as a writer, I just always tend to go with the kinds of stories that I love, the kind of stories I want to see. And so I'm always trying to make it more suspenseful. And that's why I really love the opportunity to write something that was specifically supposed to be just about the suspense. And I felt it when I was writing it, even though, I knew where I was going. I wanted to get into the scenes and kind of feel what the character would be feeling to get sort of an idea if I was headed in the right direction. So I know I felt good about it when I was done.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. That was my favorite. There's 3 novellas in the book for anyone watching this. All 3 of them are very good. They're all very different. I would say Marx was my favorite just because it was pure suspense. Like the name of the book was Suspense and Mystery Stories, and that was the only one that really was true suspense to me. The other ones were also excellent stories, but they were more. The second story was like more fantasy horror. Like it was very Stephen King, which I admired that. And the third one was very it was like very dark, like serial killer horror. I like that too, but they weren't like suspense in the purest sense of the form. And the book comes out tomorrow, if I remember correctly, right? The 12th. All right.
On the 12th.
Remember that, everybody.
Rush out and get it.
Yeah, rush out and get it, of course. What would you list as like some of your favorite like suspenseful movies?
We talked about Halloween, and I really do think that is a suspense film.
Oh, sure.
I thought that was one, and another one, you mentioned Stephen King. I think Misery is a wonderful suspense film. The book and the movie, even though they're very different, but there is a lot of real suspense and Misery of, what's going to happen. To me, it's almost like a picture perfect suspense novel. It's tightly paced, but with a lot of character depth. So that one definitely. I also really like a Dean Koontz book called Intensity.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah, and that
I remember
one
they made a movie out of that one.
They made a I think it was a mini series. And it was decent, but the book especially is just really just totally suspenseful, and it really it starts right at the beginning, like chapter 1, it starts and then it doesn't let up. So that one definitely. And then there are other things that I think have suspense built into them. Silence of the Lambs, I think, has a lot of suspense built into it.
Yes, it does.
And I really love that. I'm trying to think what else might. And there are some things that have suspense that aren't even suspense novels per se. There's I don't know if you're familiar with the YA author John Green, but
I don't think so.
He's most famous for The Fault in Our Stars, but he has a novel called Looking for Alaska, which isn't a suspense novel, but I always point to it as showing like how sometimes things not even directly in the story build suspense. For instance, that novel, all the chapters are countdown, like 100 days before, 99 days before, 86 days before, but you don't know before what. Like, you don't even know if it's something good or bad. And that gives it a sense of suspense because you're counting down to something, but you don't know what it is. So even though that's not a suspense novel, I always point to it when I'm talking about interesting ways you can use to build suspense.
That reminds me of the young adult book Hatchet that I read when I was like in junior high by Gary Paulson. That was kind of suspenseful too. The kid's like stuck out in the wilderness after a plane crash, and will he escape? That kind of thing. I like that. There was a movie I saw a long time ago called Nick of Time with Johnny Depp and Christopher Walken. I don't know if you've seen it. Yeah, that was pretty suspenseful. Do you think do you think suspense can have like supernatural elements, or is that like strictly like a horror thing?
I'm of the mind that there's really no limits. I think a lot of the labels we put on things can be arbitrary and for marketing purposes.
True.
So I definitely think, like I said, the best horror has suspense built into it. And I definitely think now I think there are readers out there who kind of draw a line. There was I almost don't even want to say what book it was, just because if I tell you this has a supernatural element to it, then it kind of gives away the ending of a book that has a wonderful twist. So I'm not going to tell you which book, but there was a book that was a suspense novel, and then at the end the twist was supernatural, and I know some suspense readers felt like that was a cheat. I didn't, because I thought if you go back from the beginning, everything was planted. You could see that it was actually leading to that supernatural twist, even if you didn't know it at the time. But I think there's some readers who do kind of draw that distinction. I don't. I feel like anything goes.
Yeah, I would agree with you in that, because there are a lot of movies like the original Night of the Living Dead, Evil Dead. Those are very suspenseful films to me, and they're supernatural related. And I've written a couple of stories that would appear to be, for the most part, suspenseful or like reality based, and then at the end there's like a supernatural twist. A lot of Twilight Zones were kind of like that. Twilight Zone had a lot of suspenseful stuff in it.
I always say that Twilight Zone is my greatest influence. So
yeah, that's right, you do. I remember that one episode with Martin Landau, the Jeopardy room, where he's the spy in the hotel room, and there's the two goons like across the way, and there's a bomb in the room somewhere, and he doesn't know where it is, and he has to escape. And I don't want to blow the ending for people who haven't seen it, but he figures it out, and he actually turns the tables on the two assassins at the end. But that was a very example of just pure suspense because there was no supernatural or fantasy elements in that episode.
Yeah.
So let's talk high school for a bit. What is it about those 4 years? What is it about those 4 years that seem to just like impress upon like everybody? Like it's a pervasive thing in American culture. Is it just because of the common shared experience that everybody goes through it? Because not everybody has the same feelings about, say, at college, because not everybody goes to college, where they have different college experiences. But everybody seems to share like high school. Why do you think? Do you think it's just because we're like teenagers at that time, or what?
Well, I mean, the teenage years are fraught with just, emotional turmoil and changes and everything. And high school, in a way, it almost is like you're in some sort of prison camp. Like we all have to be there. We don't get to choose who we're there with. We're there with some people who are horrible, some people who are nice. Some of the guards or teachers are nice. Some of them are horrible. But it's like we're all sort of stuck in this microcosm together. And even though it's a shared experience, it's very different. Like I, for one, cannot relate to people who think high school was their golden years.
Right.
Because
me neither.
to me, high school was a nightmare. It was a nightmare I had to live on a daily basis. And, that really can leave an impression on a person. It doesn't mean you don't get over it and you don't move on, but it's still, that's a part of you. And I, especially, for me as a queer author who likes to explore queer themes in my work, high school, especially in the time I was growing up, could really be difficult for queer people. Even though we mostly were not out back then, there were no like gay student alliances or anything when I was in high school. But for some of us, I didn't have to be out for people to recognize that difference in me. And so that made high school extra difficult for me. And that's something I like to explore. And that's, actually, even though Septic is, a pure suspense piece, I explored some of that about what it was like to be queer in high school in the 80s. Because the thing about the 80s is, if you look at a lot of the media, the movies and the books and the TV shows from that time, you would think there were no queer people back then.
Yeah, that's true.
Unless we were there to be an object of a joke or a cringe moment. But we were there. And so I like, if I'm writing a story set in that time period, I like to put queer characters in there to show we were there. You maybe didn't think we were, or you want to pretend we weren't, but we were there. And with this one, I wanted to explore it from two perspectives, because the Zach character is more like me, the one who people sort of recognize that and therefore hassle him a lot. But Carl represents the popular kid. Because, even though I didn't know it at the time, I found out later in life that some of the popular kids I went to school with were also gay and in the closet. And that was a different experience for them, with different pressures and different reasons for why they wanted to pass. And I thought it would be interesting to explore that perspective too, which is different from my own, but still a valid experience that people lived through.
Yeah, I noticed the theme between this and The Advantage and even Lucid, because Lucid has for people who don't know, Lucid is Mark's most recent horror novel, which also has threads from the 80s and like high school in there also, because there's a direct like connective tissue between all three of these.
Yeah. I tend to go back to that sometimes because, again, those were my formative years, for better or worse. So I mind that a lot for my work.
When I was in high school, I was in this when I was in 8th grade, the teachers and administrators were watching, quote unquote, watching the 8th grade student body. And when I was in 9th grade, they had this program And we didn't know this at the time, students. They were segregating like different kids from the main of the student body. And it was called SWAS, school within a school. And they like put us down. There was probably about 100 like freshmen that they would put down in this group of 4 rooms down the library. And at the time, none of us knew why we were there. It was like a 4-hour block every day. And I learned later that they had observed any kid that was quote unquote different was like segregated and put down there for like the entire year. And it was almost like some kind of experiment. But I always thought that was very strange that they would do that. But it was actually really fun because you had all the kids who had personality and like in one place. You had all the the punks, the goths, the weirdos, the creative people, everything. They were all in one spot, and it was really fun. But after I learned about it, what the actual true purpose of it was kind of odd, but I enjoyed it.
That's an interesting program they had going on there.
Yeah.
I mean, I would have actually loved to have been separated from the student body.
Yeah, it was actually enjoyable. Other than I think there was gym class and like an art class that I had like with the rest of the main student body, but the rest of the day was spent there, which was pretty interesting. So I've got two games. One is called Then and Now, and the other is an 80s teen movie trivia game.
Okay.
Now, then and now, imagine yourself at 15. Okay.
Okay.
And I'll be asking these questions, and you have to answer what the answer is when you were 15 compared to the answer now.
Okay.
For example, the first section is called your favorite toy when you were 15 and now.
When I was 15.
And if anyone in the chat wants to like jump in and like answer these questions just for fun, why the hell not?
When I was 15, I think that would be around the time that I got my first typewriter.
Mm-hmm.
And I will admit, I was never someone who enjoyed composing on the typewriter, just because I made a lot of mistakes.
Yeah.
But I definitely, it made me feel more like a writer, because I always wanted to be a writer. That's, my long-standing dream. And I took typing in high school when most boys did not take typing in high school. I think if I remember correctly, I was the only boy in that class that year. But I'm like, I have to learn to type because I want to be a writer. So I'm going to say the typewriter. And and now I could say my computer because I write on that now, but I don't know if you would call them toys, but you may notice I'm surrounded by books. My house is just full of books, to the point that my husband made a sign to hang on the front of the house where we named our house the Book Nook. But so cool. I'm going to say books because I love being surrounded by them.
That's pretty cool. I would say books count. Oh, when I was 15, my favorite toy, probably my VCR. I was like the movie fiend. I was always like taping stuff off of TV and always like pirating movies and stuff. So that was probably my favorite toy back then. And now probably my laptop, because as you say, we're writers. Like all my creative stuff, like everything is like my entire life's on my computer. Like seriously, my house caught fire or something. The only thing I would really need to save is my laptop. Everything else, whatever. But I have to have the laptop. All my entire life's on that.
We were late to the VCR game when I was growing up. So when I was 15, we didn't even have a VCR yet.
I didn't have one until I was raised with my grandmother, and we didn't have a lot of money. And I don't think we had one until I was 11 or 12, which was probably 92. So it was pretty late. That was like very late in the game. So I was right there with you. Okay. Favorite TV show, then and now. 15 and now.
Let's see. At 15, let's see. What year would that have been? That would have been the 80s. it's hard for me to figure out what period it was, but probably back then I watched a lot of sitcoms back then. So I was really into Cheers, and that probably around that time would have been the one I watched the most. I was really into the original Roseanne, because I felt like it got poor people in a way that most shows didn't.
True.
And those were probably my two biggest at the time. Now, my all-time favorite show is Buffy the Vampire Slayer, even though I know it's been off the air forever. But if it's current shows, I am speaking of 80s nostalgia, I am a big Stranger Things fan.
Good show.
I definitely love that show. I was also a big fan of The Last of Us that, just recently aired on HBO Max. So those two probably.
Those are good. You see, when I was 15, Buffy had just come on, like 97. I was 15, so yeah, Buffy was my favorite. I was obsessed with it when the first season came on, because I'd never seen anything quite like it before. Yeah. So I was recording every show, every episode, and rewatching it endlessly. And now there's this true crime show called Bizarre Murders that I really, really like a lot. It is only half-hour segments, but they retell these absolutely the weirdest crap you will ever hear, but they do it in a funny way, if that makes any sense. They like that. Okay, favorite movie, then and now.
Back then, I probably would have said, let's see, 15. I was super into all what I considered the big three horror franchises of the time: Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, and Halloween. I probably would have said at that time Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3. It was the one I watched the most. It was the one I couldn't get enough of. Now, if I had to pick my absolute favorite movie, it's actually, I feel like it gets harder when you get older because there's so many that you almost can't pinpoint.
I've noticed that. Yeah.
I do think Halloween is definitely right up there. I watch it once a year, every October. And I never get tired of it. So Halloween is definitely up there. But I'm also a big fan of the Blair Witch Project, the original film. I just think they did so much with so little, and I felt that was a movie that was built on suspense.
Yes, it was.
Not leading to some major payoff. It was just about the suspense. So I would say those two.
When I was 15, I was obsessed with Independence Day. It's not even a good movie, but I was really I like the special effects and them blowing the hell out of New York and stuff. But now the last movie that I watched that I really liked was a movie called Rebroken. It was about this guy. His daughter had died in an accident, and he was going to grief therapy. And it turned out his daughter. Well, I don't want to blow the ending because it has a really big twist at the ending. But it turns out his daughter may or may not have actually been dead. So that was actually pretty good. Okay. Favorite pastime then and now.
That really hasn't changed much. It was reading then, it's reading now. It's not I reading and writing, that hasn't really changed.
What's funny, actually, I filled out my own answers on this questionnaire, and my favorite pastime then and now: reading books or comics. That's both then and now. So yeah. Some things don't change.
No.
Okay, favorite band or singer then and
now. That really has changed a lot. My taste in music has changed. Around 15, I was getting into it was a little before, but I was just getting into like the grunge movement was starting to happen. I like Pearl Jam and Nirvana, and I started to get into bands like Nine Inch Nails. The Cure came later. I know we've talked about The Cure before, but I got into Cure a little later when I was in college. But now I don't listen to music as much now, and when I do, it tends to be of a different type. I like listening to like the music of Adele. That's kind of where I am now. Lost you for a minute there.
I know. We swapped sides on the screen. RJ, what's going on? There we go. We're back. Okay.
It's a little Brady Bunch fun.
Oh, let's see. When I was 15, I was just discovering a lot of music when I was 15. I discovered The Cure when I was 15, like Depeche Mode. I think my favorite band probably at that era was probably the Smashing Pumpkins. Although that was like a brief fling. I wasn't into them very long. Nowadays, I have the problem with music that you were talking about, like with movies. Like there's just so much music that I listen to, and so many different types. I can't even like quantify it anymore. This is like it changes daily. So okay. Favorite subject of interest then and now. Like it would be like school subject then, but like what do you find of interest now too?
I mean, back then it definitely would have been like English lit. And I mean now it would probably be the same. I mean so I do like, getting into some history and stuff like that, but it's literature for me.
I was really good at history back then, but probably I'm into like literature and I like some science too. Like nowadays, I read a lot more science books and nonfiction than I used to when I was younger. My worst subject was math. Like I just was terrible.
Definitely.
All right, section 2, the bad. What was your most hated food then and now?
Well, that's kind of the same too. I think mayonnaise is from the devil. I hated it then. I hate it now. It's just I call it the condiment of the devil. I also then and now hate coconut. Like if I accidentally bite into something that has coconut in it, it's immediately getting spit out.
I think mine then and now, lima beans. I hate that. I can't stand lima beans. They just have this horrible consistent taste in there. I don't like that. Okay, most hated chore then and now.
Back then I hated cleaning my room. I mean, I just it seems weird now, but it seemed like like I just can't. I don't have the energy. But now I don't mind that so much. So now probably my most hated chore. Well, I don't have to do it much anymore because I will say my husband is very sweet and he does it, but that would be mowing the lawn. So bless my sweet husband who does most of the yard work.
My most hated chore when I was 15 was probably doing dishes because we didn't have a dishwasher. I was the dishwasher, so that was kind of a pain in the neck. And now mowing the lawn. Okay, most hated TV show then and now.
Back, it's interesting. When I grew up in a time where there were like basically 3 channels and we didn't have cable, I actually watched a lot of shows I didn't like because there wasn't much else on. Because I'll talk about some shows and say like I didn't really like that, and they'll say, "Why do you watch it?" I'm like, "Because that just means I thought it was better than whatever was on the other 2." But let's see. The show I probably didn't like the most back then. I used to watch with my mother because she liked a show called Trapper John MD. I don't know if most people would even remember that. It was like a hospital show that I think was tenuously connected to MASH somehow. I think it was supposed to be a character from MASH in his older age, but I didn't really care for that, but I did see it. And now, you know, I tried to watch the Anne Rice shows on AMC, which I love Anne Rice's work, but the shows on there, The Interview with the Vampire and The Witching Hour, did not do it for me. And I think I may have lost Damascus again. I may be all alone in the room. But
Damascus has left the building.
Yes.
We're waiting for his imminent return. And now he has returned.
Yeah, I don't know. It was telling me my phone was overheating.
Okay.
Now it's telling me that again. Hang on. Let me turn the fan on. Hang on.
If we listen. And I see the crow back there. Well, while his phone is overheating, I'll just mention again, my new novella Septic is out in Dark Tide 8, Against the Clock. Tomorrow is the release day. Pre-order now. There, I'm just doing a little plugging.
And the link is right below the video, folks. It will take you straight to Amazon. Do check it out. Meanwhile, these flames are definitely heating up Damascus's phone. You should...
This feels very Charlie's Angels, like Charlie is talking to me and is about to give me my assignment.
Damascus should invest in a real laptop. We support laptops that run Microsoft because Microsoft is of the devil. Whereas like Apple products tend to be more, heaven sent.
Like angels, like Charlie's Angels. It's all coming back.
Exactly. And, Charlie, now you're reminding me of the crush I had on Cheryl Ladd.
Cheryl Ladd was my favorite angel.
Bit of trivia. Did you ever watch the Josie and the Pussycats cartoon series when you were a child?
I saw some of it, yeah.
Well, they had two sets of actors, voice actors. There were the character actors, and then there were the singers. And Cheryl Ladd's first job was to be the singing voice for Melody Valentine, the ditzy drummer.
I did not know that.
And now Damascus has returned from the depths
Welcome back.
Heated bone hell.
Yeah, technical difficulties again. Oh my God, it's telling me the same damn thing. Normally I can make this give me an avatar instead. Let me go back to the other studio.
Maybe if we try fanning him, it will.
I have a fan on over here, but it just makes the flames hotter.
Oh. That's the risk you run. Now see, this is suspense. Will Damascus be back? Will he get his phone to stop overheating? We're just giving you a lesson in suspense, people.
I have done several tricks when I had to run the show on my own phone to keep it cool. You've got to blow air at it. I know people who've actually put a bowl of ice water between the phone and the fan to keep a cool stream blowing on it.
Interesting.
Yeah, I've got a fan on it right now. Good grief. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Well, there he's back, people. How long the suspense is over.
I'm back again. I'm back again. Okay. See, I've got a fan blowing on it right now, so we'll see how well this works. Okay. Let's see. What was your life goal then and now?
I put the fire out. Maybe that'll cool it some.
My life goal then was I desperately wanted to be a writer. And my life goal now is I still want to, I mean, I am a writer. I want to keep doing it. And I've sort of added into that, I want to enjoy my life. I feel like a lot of people think when you get older, you get a job that makes you miserable. You don't have time to really enjoy your life. So I'm getting near 50. So I want to be able to enjoy my life while I'm living it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. How do you define success then and now?
That's actually changed. Like when I was younger, I thought success meant you were Stephen King, like you were making loads of money from it. And now I just think success is doing something you love and not letting anyone deter you from it. And maybe that makes you a lot of money. Maybe it makes you a little bit of money. Maybe it makes you no money. But if you're doing what you love and you don't let people try to dissuade you from it, I think you're successful.
I would agree with that. Happiness is, I think, a good definition of success for me. Like you said, doing what makes you happy.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. What would your ultimate anywhere but here place be then and now?
Back then, it would have been New Orleans. I hadn't been to New Orleans yet, but I was in love with it from the work of Anne Rice and then a little bit later Poppy Z. Bright. And so I had a lot of dreams about like running away to New Orleans. Now it would be my favorite city to visit is Savannah, Georgia. I just love that city. My husband and I go there on average once a year. So it, in a weird way, it feels like my home away from home.
That's a very good answer. I think when I was 15, my anywhere but here place was probably London, but I've never actually been there. And nowadays, probably New York. That would be probably my places. Okay, let's see here. That was the then and now game. Now we've got 80s teen movie trivia questions. Because Septic is set in the 80s, and it's set in high school, so I figured, why not? Okay. Very first question. In 1985's The Breakfast Club, what were each of the 5 students serving detention for?
Okay. Molly Ringwald skipped school to go shopping. Emilio Estevez had taped the guys' buns together in gym class. Anthony Michael Hall had the flare gun in his locker go off. Ali Sheedy had done nothing. She just had nothing better to do.
Right.
And Judd Nelson, what had he done? I can't remember what Judd Nelson did. I'm drawing a blank.
4 out of 5. He pulled the fire alarm.
That's right. Yeah. I could not pull it up.
Okay. That's pretty good. Okay. Number 2. In the movie Say Anything, what song does John Cusack's character play from a boombox outside his ex-girlfriend's house, hoping to win her back?
Oh, the image is so iconic. You would think I would just know that, but I'm gonna admit right up front, I can see it, but I can't hear it.
I didn't remember this either. I actually had to look this up because I also remember the image, but I couldn't remember the song. It was Peter Gabriel's "In Your Eyes."
That is, well, now that you say it, I do remember that now.
Okay. What band recorded the song that John Hughes named the film Pretty in Pink after?
And I know Molly Ringwald loved it. That's why he named the movie that. You're killing me with these. It's the band that Molly Ringwald loved, but I can't remember the name.
The Psychedelic Furs.
Okay.
I actually love that band. I love that band. Probably because of that movie, actually. Okay. Number 4. No, Parnell Roberts, 1979, 1986. And you have to use some let me know what TV series made Robert well known. Okay. Okay, let's see. That was Ray Zasek, by the way. That's my man. I love that dude. He's cool. Let's see. Which 1980s Tom Cruise film caused a fashion vogue for Ray-Ban Wayfarers?
A Risky Business.
Yes. Very good. Okay. Let's see. Number 5. Okay. Arrange these 4 80s teen films in chronological order by year, oldest to newest. Okay. We've got Porky's, One Crazy Summer, A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors, and Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Okay. What was the second one?
Let's see. One Crazy Summer. It was Porky's, One Crazy Summer, Nightmare on Elm Street, and Nightmare on Elm Street 3, and Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
I feel like Nightmare on Elm Street 3 is the oldest one.
Yes, actually it is.
Is Porky's the...
Actually, Nightmare on Elm Street 3 is the most recent one, actually.
Well, that's what I guess that's what it is. It's the
right,
oldest
yeah.
of the 80s.
Yeah, you're
Porky's
right.
the one that came first?
No.
Okay. Fast Times?
Yes.
Okay. Was it Fast Times, then Porky's?
Yes.
Okay. And then One Crazy Summer, and then Nightmare 3.
Correct. Very good. That was 1982, 1983, 1986, and 1987, in case anyone was keeping track. Okay, let's see here. Okay, number 6. What was the name of Marty McFly's rock band in Back to the Future?
Oh my God.
He only says it the once. He only says it the once. He only says it once. Yeah, at the Battle of the Bands at the beginning of the. And Huey Lewis is the one.
I've seen that movie a million times when I was younger. I don't remember that. I don't even remember him ever saying it.
Yeah, so they're the Pinheads. The Pinheads. Remember? Because the 3 judges there, and he's up there on stage, and he's like, we're the Pinheads. And then they start playing. Actually, they start playing Huey Lewis's The Power of Love, actually, if you listen to it very carefully. And then Huey Lewis is one of the judges.
Yeah, and I remember that whole scene. I still don't remember that.
Yep.
All right.
Because he only says it one time. He's like, yeah, we're the Pinheads. And then they start playing. Okay. Which of the following quotes is not from the movie Heathers?
Okay.
A. This one's multiple choice. A. If you were happy every day of your life, you wouldn't be a human being. You'd be a game show host. B. Chaos is what killed the dinosaurs, darling. Or C. Life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and take a look around once in a while, you could miss it.
That's 3 because that's from Ferris Bueller.
Yes, it is. Very good.
But I know Heathers. Heathers is my favorite 80s teen movie. I know that one.
All right. Okay, number 8. Prior to arriving in Los Angeles, in which city does Daniel LaRusso live in The Karate Kid?
Is it New Jersey?
Yes.
Okay. I couldn't remember if it was New York or New Jersey, so I just picked one.
Yep. It's Newark, New Jersey, actually. Okay. In 1987's The Lost Boys, which is the first vampire to be killed in the movie?
Is it the one that's played by Bill from Bill and Ted?
Yes, it is.
I can't remember his name, but
Marco. Marco was in the movie, but yes, you actually got the bonus point without knowing it because that was actually it was Alex Winters from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Which leads into the next question. According to Ted Theodore Logan in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, which historical figure had wooden teeth and chased Moby Dick?
George Washington?
Yes. And Bill refutes that, saying, that's Captain Ahab, dude. Okay. Number 11. In 1987's 3 O'Clock High, which is not a way geeky main character Jerry tries to avoid fighting psychotic bully Buddy Revell. This one's multiple choice. A. He plants a switchblade in Buddy's locker to get him expelled. B. He disguises himself as another student. Or C. He pays the school's quarterback to fight Buddy for him.
Is it B?
Yes, actually it is. Yes. You did really well on that. I like that movie. Nobody's ever seen that one, but I like that movie a lot.
I haven't seen it since my youth, so I wasn't 100%, but
it's been a long time since I've seen it. I remember the part where he pays the quarterback to fight the guy in the library, and the bully like punches him once, and he falls into the stacks, and all the stacks keep falling over through the entire library, one-on-one, like a domino effect.
Very the Mummy.
Number 12. In 1985's Teen Wolf, what is the mascot for Scott Howard's high school basketball team? Is it A, the Dragons, B, the Beavers, or C, the Wolves?
Beavers?
Yes, yeah, it is. Very good.
I will tell you this. I saw the cartoon of that before I ever saw the movie. So I was not...
I wish that was Ghostbusters.
Yeah. So I was not prepared for how risque parts of the movie were coming from the cartoon.
When I was a kid, I was a big fan of the real Ghostbusters cartoon. And I was actually kind of disappointed by the movies when I saw them, because I was like, they don't look anything like the cartoon version. And it wasn't as funny, and it wasn't as fun as the cartoon. Okay. Number 13. What is Baby's real first name in Dirty Dancing?
Francis.
Damn. I thought that would be a stumper. I didn't even know that one. I didn't even remember that one.
That was the first movie my mother ever bought when we finally got a VCR. So I saw the movie like 100 times. So I do know
I remember when I was in like second or third grade, my grandmother bought the soundtrack to that, like on an LP. And I remember I have like every song of that memorized just because I heard it so much as a kid. Like, I don't even like it, the music to it, but I still have it all memorized just because of that. Okay, number 14. How was Charlie Brewster's friend Evil Ed killed in 1985's Fright Night?
I remember he got the cross to the face, but I don't know that killed him. Oh, I should know this. Did he get doused with holy water?
I think he gets doused with holy water, and then he gets staked, I do believe. I remember correctly.
I couldn't remember exactly.
That was like the most gruesome scene in that whole movie. I really like that. Trick question, you didn't die.
That is true, because he was there at the end.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So yeah, pretty good. Okay, number 15. Which actor in 1986's One Crazy Summer also played one of the so-called big bads on the television series Buffy the Vampire Slayer?
Hold on. Is it the actor who played the Master?
Yes, it is.
And his last name is Metcalf. Because that's my husband's name. Is it Mark Metcalf?
It is Mark Metcalf. Yes, it is. Very good.
Because if I had taken my husband's name, would be my name.
But yes, he was also on Seinfeld as the Maestro, and he was in Animal House. But that was my favorite. Yeah. My favorite scene in One Crazy Summer is when he takes the lobsters and when they're boiling, and he takes a stethoscope and he puts it in the water to listen to them scream. I don't know. It makes me laugh.
This is completely unrelated, but for people out there who like One Crazy Summer, I believe it was the same director made a movie called How I Got Into College, which most people have never seen, but I was obsessed with when I was younger. So I recommend that one. Find it and check it out.
Yeah, he did Better Off Dead, One Crazy Summer, and then How I Got Into College. That's right. And he also did the cartoon Eat the Cat later on, which I used to watch when I was in like grade school. And I didn't know it was the same dude. Okay. Number 16. What is the model of car that Ferris borrows from his friend Cameron's dad in Ferris Bueller's Day Off?
Is it a Porsche?
Nope. Ferrari.
Okay. I just remember
It's actually a 1961 Ferrari 250 GT California Spider.
Okay. That's very
Okay, number 17. Which 1980s teen horror movie served as actor Johnny Depp's feature film debut?
That's, of course, the original Nightmare on Elm Street.
Of course. Where he gets eaten by a bed. I think everybody knows that one. Okay, number 18. There's 25 of these, by the way.
Okay.
Okay, number 18. Which 1980s musical icon does Chunk claim once stopped by his house to use the bathroom in The Goonies?
Oh, I can remember him telling that story. But who was it? I'm drawing a blank.
Michael Jackson. Because one of the other kids is all like, oh yeah, really, we're supposed to believe that. We're supposed to believe that more than the time you said Michael Jackson stopped by your house to use the bathroom.
Chunk.
Okay. Number 19. What iconic line does Will Wheaton's Gordy say to Kiefer Sutherland's ace while in a gunpoint standoff at the end of 1986's Stand By Me?
Suck my fat one, you cheap dime store hood.
Yes, absolutely right. Okay, number 20. Which movie does the following quote come from? I've been going to this high school for 7.5 years. I'm no dummy.
Is that Fast Times?
Nope. It's Better Off Dead, actually.
Oh, okay.
It was Curtis Armstrong's Charles DeMar was saying that to John Cusack. Okay. Number 21. In 1986's summer school, who was the only student who passes the course's final exam?
It was the guy that was in the bathroom the whole semester. For some reason, I saw that a million times when I was a kid too.
Yeah, that was one of the funniest lines in the whole movie. It's like everyone failed except for the kid who was in the bathroom for 6 weeks.
Because I was kind of obsessed with the two horror-obsessed characters.
I remember that. Okay, number 22. Which 1987 teen film features Elizabeth Shue fending off a variety of Chicago area goons?
Oh, Adventures in Babysitting.
Good job. Okay, number 23. Which actress played Lisa, the artificially created woman in 1985's Weird Science? Is it A, Jamie Gertz, B, Paulina Porzakova, or C, Kelly LeBrock?
Kelly LeBrock.
Good job. Okay, 2 more. What song does Ducky lip sync dance to in the record store in 1986's Pretty in Pink?
And that's the Annie Potts character? No, that's Ducky. I can remember him doing it. He had his hair slicked back. But I can't remember the song.
It was Otis Redding's Try a Little Tenderness.
Okay.
Okay, last one.
It's purely sexual.
Okay. Name the 3 rules one must abide by to keep their pet Mogwai from turning into a monster in Gremlins.
Don't get it wet. Don't expose it to light. And never feed it after midnight.
That's right.
Even though that's a tricky rule because 9 o'clock in the morning is technically.
I've always wondered about that myself. They should have clarified more and said between midnight and like dawn or something. Yeah. But so yes, that was the 80s teen movie question quiz. You did a very good job on that.
I didn't embarrass myself too bad, I guess.
No, you did a good job. Right. So I guess that's about it for everything. So okay, everybody, remember Dark Tide Volume 8, Against the Clock, comes out tomorrow from Crystal Lake Publishing. It has Mark's novella Septic in it. It also has two other novellas, which are of equal value to his. They're all very good. If you like pure suspense, you're in for a treat. And I would like to thank Mark for coming on the show again. And thank you for putting up with the technical difficulties. Yeah. And the next time you have a work come out, I want you right back on the show again, because it's always a blast having you on here. Okay, and you want to give any shout outs to anybody? You give it a shout out to anybody before you leave?
Shout out to my husband, Craig, who puts up with me. And Shane Nelson and Brandon Ford, they're the other two authors in the book. And I'm fans of both of theirs, and I'm very happy to be in the book with them.
All right. So thank you to everyone who is watching. Remember, if you like this show, if you like the damn show, if you like Critical Blast, like, share, subscribe, and that's it. Good night.